Right. Okay. There we go. Take two, man. I think that's going to be the successful one. What do you
Take
think?
two. Back in the building, in the studio. Another episode of the In Podcast.
Yeah. How about that? Let's see. I'm moving real slow today, bro. I think I need a vacation. How about that?
It's all good, man. It's all good.
There we go. Yay! Yay!
It happens to the best of us. It happens to the best of us.
Clearly, well, I need to be on my best today. Welcome to another episode of the In Podcast. The IN, intellectually nutritious, or intellectual nutrition. That's what the acronym for the N stands for.
Yeah, intellectual nutrition.
Yeah. So, how are you doing, sir?
I am outstanding, brother. Glad to be here.
Good. Now, you might notice we are one down. So, and typically in radio and broadcasting, when people roll, like they just ignore. Like just one day, it's like the person just never existed or whatever. So, but we don't do that here. So Keisha has moved on, and I want to thank her so much for what she did bring, how she contributed, what she brought to the table. She is great people. So, she really added to the spirit and energy of the podcast. So it's appreciated. She will be missed.
Great conversations.
Great energy. And if this is your first episode, you can look back on the previous episodes to find Keisha. And if you want to avail yourself of her services, www.keishamartin.com. And that's Keshia, Keshia. Also, her social media is at Keisha Martin. I think there's an underscore there, I think. I can't remember. It's on there. It's in the notes, okay? So yeah. So thank you, and we'll clap it up for Keisha. So, you never know. Maybe she'll be back. I don't know. So, Jerry.
Yes, sir.
How was your Juneteenth, brother?
It was great, man. I went to Longwood Gardens and was shocked about how their display was. So let me just give you a backdrop. Like, I've been going to Longwood for a long time. My mother started working there in their accounting department in like 90,
tilted up.
Yeah, 91,
okay.
91, 92, probably 92. So I was in high school.
Okay.
When my mom started working there, right? So I'm used to Longwood being a certain way. So I was
in what way is that, Jerry? Don't answer that.
When we started there, we were like the second black family employed.
Okay.
Right? And that was 92. Right?
Wow.
So when we went out there, it was like, straighten up, fly right. You know what I mean? Because you're setting an example for other people.
Right.
They don't have a lot of us out here. So when they had this fountain show last week for Juneteenth, and on Juneteenth, June 19th, I was just standing there at the gardens, and I was by the fountains, and then it was like the song came on, like Freddie Gray, say his name. They're like, say his name. I'm like, oh, what's going? I forgot where I was. Like, what? Longwood Gardens out here being like just putting it out there. So I was surprised at how in your face some of the things they were playing actually was, because it wasn't what I was used to. So it was I'll give them a thumbs up on that.
The Longwood Gardens.
They're working on it. They're working on a diversity, inclusion, equity. Everybody's trying to do better nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, and trust the progress. Trust the process, I should say.
Trust the process. So it was good. I would applaud them. I applaud the efforts that they made and the statement that they made. I appreciated the efforts that was made and put it in place.
That's dope. Guys should check out Longwood Gardens, and it's in the Kennett Square region of Pennsylvania. Yeah. So it's really beautiful. It's beautiful place.
People come from all over. Like every time I go out there, it's like buses and buses of people. New York, right. People they drive in. People come from other countries just to see this. And what's so wild is the fact that this used to be somebody's summer house.
The DuPonts. It was
Right.
their
Yeah.
the DuPonts.
Yeah, Pierre. It was their summer crib. You know what I mean? Just like the summer dinner parties. You know, the conservatory was where they had their dinner parties, which is just wild to think about. It was just wild to have like he was friends with Sousa, the one who did a lot of John. I think it's John Sousa.
Yeah,
did
the
marches.
Orchestra.
Yeah.
Man,
So they would just like that was the entertainment. Like you'll come up here and play a little couple things.
Man, the
That life,
privilege.
that life.
The privilege. So yeah, you guys, check out the website Longwood Gardens, and I mean, I really feel like we should support even more because they did put in the effort. I mean, it's like you reward good behavior and the effort and whatnot. So because we are a capitalistic society, so if entities realize that they can make money on doing the right thing, they'll do more of the right thing. I don't care about the motivation. I just want the message to be put out there.
Yeah,
So.
like it was. I believe just the playing the songs. They had a lot of songs playing that had message to them, and whether people are conscious or of what they were listening to or not, it's getting in. You're hearing it in the background,
Right.
So it's getting into your subconscious, whether you acknowledge it or not. So the fact that it was out there in the space, played loud enough you can hear it throughout the whole gardens.
Okay.
I thought that was major. I was like, wow.
No, that's major. That's really major. So okay, all right. Well, that's cool. What did I do for Juneteenth? I worked. How about that? I drove people around for dollars all day, and I enjoyed.
And you had the freedom to do that.
Right. I enjoyed all of the celebrations that I did see. Here in Wilmington, KRS-One, it was a big concert. Yeah. There was a bike ride in Delaware, and I was mostly in Philly, and there were just all kinds of events all over the place. So I think it's incredible. I can't wait to see it build. I know there's a lot of discussion about whether this should be a day of atonement or like should we be barbecuing for 4th of July, blah, blah, blah. My personal opinion is I think we should be celebrating, and it should be like 4th of July because first of all, freedom is something to celebrate. We could say, all right, well, it's sad that there were even slaves, but that's the other side of the coin. I also feel like we're a nation of children, and children learn better when they're having fun. And so if it's a barbecue and it's a celebration, then you get more people involved instead of feeling like depressed and sad and guilty for all that happened. So that's just my personal opinion. So
yeah, commercialization is going to happen with every holiday. It's just a part of the United States. That's just how it works here. So it's up to us as individuals to choose how we want to celebrate it. And I believe if you're cooking out and popping fireworks for 4th of July, then there's no reason why you couldn't do it on the true day where everybody
is free.
It's free. You know
That's
what I mean?
correct.
So it's like we were doing it for years and waving flags for the 4th, the Independence Day, and now you have a Freedom Day. So I would say you could celebrate it the exact way you would if you was appreciating your freedom.
Yeah, right. I agree. Yeah. Good point, man. All right. So what are we talking about today? Do you remember?
We are going to be talking about speaking of freedom.
Yeah, how about that?
Right?
Timely. That was accidental.
Speaking of freedom, freeing yourself up by knowing when to walk away from situations, from opportunities, from I won't say necessarily relationships, but more like opportunities, situations that aren't serving you anymore, or this idea that we should stick with it,
right?
Forever. And sometimes it's good to just realize that wasn't your flavor.
Yeah, I'm cool with I'm definitely cool with operating even in the relationship space because I think really that's the first area that most people encounter the staying too long, like investing too much and it's just not going to work. But when I was thinking about this topic, I couldn't help but keep thinking about the last real career job that I had.
Mm-hmm.
And how I went through a year of being tortured at this organization as they were lining everything up to get me out.
plotting against you. Putting the
Yeah. I mean, it was such a traumatic experience that even now the idea of working for another organization actually makes me sick to my stomach.
right.
Yeah, it was that bad. So here's the deal. I was at this place for almost 10 years, and there was an opportunity for a promotion, and I was told that I was the natural person for this position.
Mm-hmm.
I was told there was someone else who was also up for this position, but not really, because in this organization you couldn't just promote somebody. Like, you had to go through the whole process of post the job, blah blah blah, interview candidates, and so they would do the
check
thing.
all the boxes. Got to check all the boxes.
Yeah, it's one of those things where they would post, if they had to post the position online for 12 hours, at exactly 12 hours they would pull it down and whatnot. So I was told that the process was going to be one way, which was basically make a proposal about how you're going to, what you would do with this position, what changes would you make in the organization, blah 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 blah. We were both told this is what was going to happen. So I made my plan and I just waited. And every once in a while I would ask my boss, like, hey, what's up with the job? And he would be like, oh, I'm working on it. So in the end, I didn't get the position, and actually the person who reported to me was promoted over me into that position. Right. And the reason why this happened was because my boss expected me to just do the job without being given the authority or anything. Like, I was supposed to tell people that didn't report to me that what to do and how to do the job. Like, that's what he wanted.
Right. So he was actually like when in the NBA, when the coach gets fired, you get an interim coach. So he was actually going to be the interim coach without making an announcement. There was like no announcement that you're going to be the interim head coach, but you just start calling the plays. Just move the chair over.
That's it. That's a perfect analogy. That's exactly what happened. So, and it's funny because this person who was given the position, he didn't have to interim coach. Right? It was like, all right, I'm going to give it to him. Then he interim coached me. Then he did it, because then what they did was then they created a position for me that broke me out. I was running a team. Then I was this independent person. And then they gave him the interim responsibilities. And then after a year of me being on my own and independent and doing my work, I mean, they just tortured me. They tortured me day in and day out. And there was plenty of times where I was like, I should just roll or whatever. Mm-hmm. But in this organization, they didn't really get rid of people. It was one of those things like, well, they just move people around. And I actually really enjoyed the environment and whatnot. And I just thought the guy that got the position, he was a disaster. He was a disaster when I was there. There was so many times that I saved his ass because he just wasn't equipped to do the job. But I just never thought that they were going to actually get rid of me. And then, right after Christmas, right after the start of the new year, at the Christmas party, they made a point of saying everybody's job is safe, blah, 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 because we were in an economic kind of a shaky ground. They said that at the Christmas party. And then the first day back from Christmas break, when I came in, it took me to HR and was just like, here's your severance, blah, 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 peace. Just like that.
Wow.
Yeah. So, so as I look back over that year, there were plenty of signs that it's like, get your ass out, just get your ass on. And I didn't do it. And, part of it was I just didn't want to go find another job. I was comfortable. I was making really great money. And I was still, even in that position that they created for me, that then they could turn around and say, we don't have the budget for this position anymore. I enjoyed it and I was doing really great work.
Right.
But if I could go back in time, I would have definitely, once once the writing was on the wall, I should have just been out. I should have applied for another job within that organization, and I should have just moved on instead of waiting for them to like take me to the chamber down that long hallway. I knew it was at the end of the hallway, but
Right.
I still kept walking. Like, well, we won't ever get to the end of the hallway. I'm just gonna
Right.
catch these checks and do
Dead
things.
man walking. Dead man walking.
Yeah, yeah. So that's my experience with my latest experience with learning that you got to know when to roll out. You got to like when the opportunity doesn't serve you anymore, you got to be out.
There's a story, I forget where I first heard it. It might have been Les Brown or somebody. It's about a dog on the porch. Do you know the story about the dog on the porch?
No, I don't.
So
Tell us.
So this guy walks down the street, and every day he goes past this one house. And when he goes past the house, he hears this awful sound. And after a couple of days, he was just got curious. He had to figure out like what is this sound, right? Where's this noise coming from? Because it was like really awful. Like it was something something was dying. It sounded like somebody was dying.
Right,
And
right.
he went into the yard, and he saw that on the porch there was this dog just howling. It was like just an awful sound. And out of the goodness of his heart, he went and knocked on the door because maybe the owners didn't know or didn't hear it. They were doing something or busy, so he knocked on the door, and the owners came to the door. The owners of the house and the owners of the dog, and he says, "Sir, I heard your dog looks like it's hurt. I'm not sure if you're aware of this." And the guy's like, "Oh man, he's fine. He's just sitting on a nail."
Ooh.
And then the guy says, "Well, man, what do you mean he's sitting on a nail? What are you talking about, man? What are you talking about?" So the gentleman says, "Well, he doesn't get off of it because it doesn't hurt bad enough." So a lot of us, when we're in life, we continue to sit on nails and we howl, we complain, we talk about how the situation is tough, but it doesn't hurt bad enough. And usually, not usually, in most cases, we do not change until it does hurt bad enough.
Right. That's why that comfort thing is bad.
Yeah, we don't change. We don't like it has to be like real painful for us to be like, oh man, it's like, and we look at it with our physical health, like, oh, it's cool. I'm not gonna go to the doctors.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times that's how we show up in life is it doesn't bother us enough to take any action. And usually when we do take action, I shouldn't say usually, but a lot of times when people take action, it's too late.
Right.
It's like it got to the point where it's like it's the point of no return. It's like now it's like you have to do something. You're operating out of necessity rather than just the opportunity. Like you were saying, you saw some signs, but the signs weren't bad enough for you to say, look for me to searching. And I think some of that might be generational.
Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna just take ownership. I was just being lazy. Well, not lazy. I want to say, yeah, lazy because looking for a job
is work.
It's work. It really is. And actually, my discipline was highly specialized. So it's there's not a lot of jobs out there for my unique skill sets. There's a lot of things that I can do, but it just requires that now I have to do a lot of selling of myself. I have to show those transferable skills that they talk about that, and I didn't want to, and so at that point in time I was also focused a lot on music production and DJing. So in my mind it's like, you know what, I'm going in this other direction anyway. So this job is perfect because they're not leaning on me heavy like that. Like I can do this work with my eyes closed, blah, blah, blah. And I can still, you know what I mean? So yeah.
The comfort zone is the amount of mental energy the job required. And to do something different will require more mental energy. And you're like, I don't want to use the mental energy on this because I'm using my creative energy over here. So instead of working on my brand and marketing myself for a new job opportunity, I'm using that to my side hustle. Right? So using your creative energy in your side hustle. And the job situation was like, I'm good with this.
I'm good. It's funny because the reason why it took a year was because the I don't want to give a lot of information away. People figure out where this place is, but the person, the big boss, the big boss loved me.
Mm.
And so it wasn't until the big boss said he wasn't going to renew his contract.
Okay.
And then that's when
Things got in alignment. It got all lined up.
yes. So if he had extended his
Right.
contract, I would have been good because they knew that, like, yeah, it was
Your cover, you had a cover,
yes,
and the covers were pulled. So now it's
exactly.
like there's no one covering you in the organization. So like you're out in the open, like
Just
you're
exposed.
exposed, man. Like your backup was gone.
Yeah.
And that's interesting because in life, we're not always looking for the signs. We're not paying attention to the signs sometimes because it's going well. Things are okay. Things are good. Like you think about the ant and the grasshopper, right? The grasshopper is playing around the summer times. Everything's going well. They're not worried about the winter time. The ant's always preparing for the next situation, next thing. And I think it's different for when we grew up. I know when we were looking at jobs, my parents used to say, get this good job, and you were supposed to stick with it, and the company would take care of you, and all that type of stuff. Those are the messages. I think some of these younger folks, and from what I've witnessed, I haven't actually asked anyone the question explicitly, but sometimes people are looking for opportunities all the time.
All the time.
They're looking to level up all the time. So like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm going to be here, but I don't know how long I'm going to be here. And I'm going to keep my antenna open up, and I'm looking for the next thing because their situation is more temporary. Like this is not, I'm not going to be doing this for 25 years. I'm not going to be doing this for 5 years. And to the initial idea of knowing when to stop doing something and move away from it, one of the things I think we need to recognize, all of us need to recognize, is what we're good at and what we're not.
Right.
And I stress this at home within my family. With my daughters, like there's some things you just aren't going to be good at. Like you will just suck. And, you can try those things out, but, I'm not going to be asking you to volunteer for American Idol if you don't know how to sing. We don't have that family like, you can sing, girl, go ahead. Like I'm not trying to make you a YouTube sensation where you just get laughed at for the rest of your life. There's certain things that you can be good at, and there's certain things you can be great at. And there are certain things, no matter how hard you work at them, because that's just not your skill set, your gifting, your talent. Well, I'll say talent and your gift. It's not your gift and your talent, then no matter how hard you work at it, it's not going to get you to the level of excellence that you really are looking for.
This is true.
So you have to know, like, all right, it's time to tap. Like, this was cool, but I'm tapping out on this to focus on what it is I'm really called to do. Like, what are you really called to do? And then you can always hire people or bring in other people on your team to do the other stuff that you're not good at.
This is true. So I'll challenge you a little bit on that. Well, I don't know if this is a challenge or not, but I think so. If I look back at my situation at that particular organization, even with everything going on, once the enjoyment was gone out of doing that job, I should have been out.
Yes.
That's what it comes down to. And I think that should be the how we all should be evaluating when we should walk away and when we shouldn't. If I was still joyful, if I still enjoyed doing the job, like it's for almost being there 10 years, I can count on one hand the number of times that I woke up in the morning and didn't want to go into work. And all 5 of those times was in that last year when they were just torturing the hell out of me. But that I was also in a space where I was no longer looking at that place as my career. I was no longer planning on anything. I was really just trying to get by. I was just trying to, if any day my phone had rang and the right DJing opportunity or the production, or if I had finally sold a song or sold a beat and the check was enough that it would give me room and space to do what I needed to do next, I would have been out. Without even thinking about it. Prior to that year, I would have had a hard time if that same opportunity had come before me, because I really did enjoy that job and that place of that job place. So I do think it is important that less about if you're good.
Well, let's separate this up.
Okay.
Because there's one thing to operating your gift and not have enjoyment from the gift.
Mm-hmm.
And there's another thing not to know what your gift is.
Right.
So some people are doing things that are outside of their talent or gifting and just hoping that if they work on that thing long enough and hard enough, they'll somehow miraculously develop it into a gift or talent, right?
Yeah.
Now that's a separate thing, right? So that's when you got to know, you recognize your strengths and your weaknesses and work on your strengths.
Mm-hmm.
You know, sometimes they're told to work on their weaknesses. Well, no, if you work on your weakness, you can become good. But if you develop your strength and work on your strength, you can become the greatest of all time.
Right.
So when you're looking at your situation specifically, you were operating within a gift, and operating in that gift, you had lost the passion or joy for it.
Right.
So sometimes we don't recognize when it's time to move out of a certain thing that we are gifted in, because we're just in a different place in our life.
Right.
Right. So you think about your childhood, your teenage or preteen, your teenage years, then you like your young adult years and your adult years. There's certain things that we used to love doing. Right. And I'm going through this now currently because I have all this nostalgia about cartoons I used to watch.
What cartoons would those be?
Like, you know, G.I. Joe, Transformers,
Mask.
Mask, right? And these are all on Tubi for free, right? So
Mhm.
I'm popping these down on my list. So I'm like, oh, this would be great to watch with my daughters. Introducing like, this was I came home from school every day, and I'm watching these shows, and I'm like, this is not that good. This is really terrible. This is the show. I mean, like, I'm not saying that Transformers and G.I. Joe were not great, but just this, it's the same plot every time. You're watching it, and it's like
you can't go back. You can't. You know it.
You know, but even though you've seen the reruns, right? Because there are certain shows that you watch in syndication and it's still like a good show. You know what's going to happen, but you still enjoy it. But it's like the same structure every episode. So watching Thundercats, and we're like, okay, step 1, Lionel's going to do something dumb. Step 2, he's going to pull out the sword. Step 3, everybody's going to come rescue him. All right, next episode, Lionel's going to do something dumb. So you're watching the same thing. But when you were younger watching it, it was so cool, so fresh. You couldn't wait for the next episode.
Yeah.
You didn't see through all the plot stuff.
Right.
So what I'm saying is that even though I like the show was great show, it just doesn't resonate the same. There's certain things that where we have a skill, a gift in, or a talent in, but now it's like that thing just doesn't do it for me. Like, you know, it's when I was younger, my father would talk about food, and he would talk about how at some point food just not going to taste the same anymore.
Right.
So there are things that you love, like there's a dish you love, but just doesn't taste the same anymore because you've had it so many times. It has gotten dry. It's gotten boring. It's lost its flavor. And in our lives, there are certain things that we are good at, but then eventually they lose their flavor. And we see it on so many levels. You see it a lot with artists, creative people. So, you know, like I was watching this movie about Jimi Hendrix one time, and he wanted to create new material, but the audience kept wanting him to play the same material.
Stuff, yes.
Right. So it was like, I don't want to play that. That's what I did like 5 years ago, 10 years. Like, it's what I played before. Like, I'm a creative. I want to create something new. And when you are creative, like I would consider you to be highly creative. And when you are creative, sometimes getting in the same thing over and over again, it gets dull. But because we also have this desire for safety, we sometimes take the safe route, the survival route, rather than doing what makes us happy.
Yes, this is true. So we're telling you guys, you gotta get out your comfort zone. I mean, that's always important. That's definitely a key thing. But in terms of knowing when to walk away, what are the signs when it's time to walk away from a situation? Do you have any offhand that you can think of?
Well, one of the things you have to ask yourself is, what am I getting from this? So the value, what value am I getting from this?
Mm-hmm.
And is the value I'm getting, right, the payoff? So there's always a cost and a payoff to everything. So is the payoff worth the cost?
Right.
Is the payoff worth the cost? So what I am giving to this opportunity, to this job, to this person, to this situation, is it what I'm giving worth what I'm getting back? And sometimes it is, and sometimes it isn't. Sometimes, even though it's a good opportunity or a good situation, what I'm getting back from it in my fulfillment, in my joy, in my happiness, it could be look at it monetarily in my revenue. Is the value that I'm getting back worth what I'm putting out? And only you as an individual can answer that question.
Okay.
Because you have to live with yourself. Only you have to live in your own skin. Like I cannot tell a person what's right or wrong for them because I live in my skin, they live in their skin. So you have to ask yourself, is the payoff worth the cost?
Okay. So I have one. If you're miserable and you've been miserable for an extended period of time,
The payoff isn't worth it, right? Because
right.
now what you're giving, you're not happy.
Yeah. I mean, and so to expand on Jerry's point, it's not, you could be making $100,000 an hour,
Right.
but if you're miserable,
The payoff isn't worth the cost.
Exactly. So if you're unhappy, if you realize that if the idea of doing this thing or being in this relationship or in this situation, if someone says you're guaranteed to be in this this situation for the rest of your life, and you get upset and makes you sick, you got to roll. It's time to make plans to move on to the next opportunity.
There's a connection between your physical health and your mental health.
Mm-hmm.
So I know many of you listening to my voice have been in situations, and you're probably going to think about it as soon as I describe this, where you wake up in the morning and you don't feel good at the thought of going to wherever you're going to go, your job or whatever. It's like your body is telling you don't really want to be there. So it's like you might wake up with a headache or a stomach ache. And then, if you have sick days, sometimes you're like, man, I don't feel like going. I call out, like, you practice. Sometimes I used to, and I'm not going to say, well, I'm not going to say where I was or who I worked for, but there were times you'd be like, how does that sound? Okay, that's good. Like, you're like, I just don't feel like I can't, I'm just not. And you're like, you practice the call. And then as soon as I would hang up the phone, it was a miracle. I was healed. It was like Benny Hinn touched me. It was like I can walk. I can walk. You know what I mean? I feel good. I feel good again. It's like because I'm not going there. So it's like the relief of not going there automatically changed my state, and I felt better.
Yeah. That's that. Yeah. If you don't want to go to work, if you're in a relationship and you just don't want to see the person, you don't like the idea of going out to dinner or being intimate or whatever, if it's not there, then that's when it's time to really start evaluating, hey, is it time for us to separate? Because especially in relationships, I will say this, if you love someone, if you love them the right way, you'll let them go if you know you can't give them what they want or what they deserve, and that's very, very important. I mean, sometimes it's just not good chemistry or whatnot. So, but you don't want to hurt them by breaking up with them or ending a relationship. But if you really do love them, you want them to have the love and the kind of life that they deserve. And if you can't give it to them, then you need to step out the way.
And I think the key here is for people to understand the goal is to plan your exit strategy.
Elaborate, please.
Well, I don't want people to hear and they be like, "Oh man, I don't feel like going to work," and I'm like, "I'm quitting tomorrow." Like, that wouldn't be the best decision to make, to just automatically quit your job and not have something else
lined up.
That wouldn't be smart. So you'd want to look at, okay, if I feel that this is not where I'm supposed to be, it's time for me to move on. Then start planning your strategy to exit. You plan what the next thing is going to be. You plan on how you're going to replace what it is that you're doing now. You look at what's the next thing. So now it's time for next. So you got to then start thinking about, how do I get to my next?
That's a great point.
because you don't want to just put yourself your feelings, right? Because emotions can lie to you. Let's be clear on that. So your feeling that you have is if it's consistently taking place,
Right. Over a long period of
time,
time, not just because Monday you don't feel it.
yeah, then you may not be in a good, you're not maybe necessarily in a good place, or a good, your opportunity or situation is not positive for you. You're not feeling it, right? But at the same time, you don't want your emotions to lead you to be in a worse position than what you're currently in.
Yeah.
So when I say, okay, I didn't feel like, when I recognize, because I was in the situation, but my example was a little bit different than yours. Once I got to the point, I wasn't necessarily fired, but there was an employee evaluation, and I didn't like the way it went and some of the things that were said to me. And then that was the day I declared, I'm never going to work here anymore or work for anybody. I'm not going to, this is it. I'm done. Like, I'm out. And I didn't know that day how it was going to work, but I'm like open. I'm looking.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm like, okay, if I stay here, it's not going to be good, because all they're going to do is keep getting me mad. I'm going to be angry.
Right.
And I'm going to be a person that I don't really want to be to these people. And I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be the angry black guy. That's not who I wanted to be. So that's when I started looking at what's the next move. And because I asked the question, or I basically made the declaration that I'm out. Like that day I was out. Now I was still coming back.
Right. You made it in your head. You didn't say it to them. You made it in your head.
I'm out.
Okay.
I'm out. Right. So that's when I started seeing things that I didn't see before. I started started seeing opportunities for myself that I wasn't thinking about before. Because as soon as you declare something that you want, and if you're serious, right, the universe is always going to test if you're serious. That's what God will do. It's going to test you to see how serious you are about your word. And if you're serious, then you are going to start seeing things that will help you move on to the next thing, the ram in the bush, for those who know the Old Testament. But you have to be clear on what you want. Clarity is key.
Right. I always talk about, I don't always talk about this, but I've said this, and I believe in paradigm shifting, the end paradigm shifting. Check that out too. When you make the decision that you want something or you want to do something, if you believe in that decision, then your brain will break its neck to point out to you all the opportunities that are before you, that's going to help you to get to what you want. It's almost like if you like a particular car, a particular car catches your eye, you're like, oh, I really like that. Then all of a sudden you see that car everywhere. People will believe like, oh my gosh, it's a sign that this is what you're supposed to have, when the actuality is just that your brain knows that this is what it likes, so it stands out when you see it. So if you have made the decision that you're going to roll and you want a new job, or you want whatever it is you want to do, if you commit yourself to it, then your brain is going to now start pointing out to you, oh, that's an opportunity to get you to where you want to be. There's one.
And so your point of seeing the car everywhere right now, like especially when people buy a car, as soon as they buy the car, they've never seen this car before.
And now all of a sudden it's all over the place.
Everywhere, right? So what I believe what that's called is the reticular activating system.
Oh, this guy's so brilliant.
And that's like, it's like at the base of the brain, and it's what someone described it to me once is like your personal assistant, because it knows what to, somebody who has an assistant, like there's a gatekeeper, they don't get all the phone calls. So it's like, it's how a mother or father can hear their child's voice
over everything else.
All the kids are like, mommy, daddy. And you're like, I don't know. I don't recognize that. But then as soon as yours, you're like, yo, what's going on? Like, so you know your child's voice over other children's voices. And the car is like, your brain now is on the lookout. So it's like your assistant said, okay, you like this car. So now I'm going to show you every time that car pops up, you're going to see it.
Grab your attention.
It's going to see it. And now it's like you don't help but see it. As soon as somebody points, it's almost like when somebody points something out to you, and it was right in front of your face the whole time. You didn't notice it. Then they point out to you. Now you see it all the time. You can't help but see it.
Right.
And our brain is designed, if you know how to use it, the conscious mind and the subconscious mind to give you whatever it is you say that you want. Like if somebody says I don't feel well, then things are going to start to show up that to agree with what you just said. And when we think about walking away or moving on to your next, well, one of the things is to know what you want next. And I don't know how many of our listeners practice the concept of journaling. And when you think about life, you know, I heard someone tell me once, he said, a life worth lived is a life worth recording. So I started keeping a journal, like, which is weird because when I was younger, the whole idea of having a journal was like,
that's what the girls did.
Yeah, it was like, what journaling? What diary? Why would I have a diary or journal, right? So I've been keeping a journal for almost over 20 some years now, probably like 25 years, something like that.
Wow, that's amazing. Your book's gonna be great.
Yeah, so it's like I got volumes of them now. Like I got, you know, I finished one, get another one. You know, some of them are leather bound, some of them are hardback. You know, because I started looking at what style I like. You know, and you can order custom made, you know, journal books type situations. But the idea is like writing down things about yourself, what you're grateful for, what do you like, what are you into. Sometimes it's funny that we don't know ourselves as well as we think we do, because we don't spend enough time with ourselves in a quiet space, reflecting and asking ourselves questions.
Agreed. Or, I mean, and there's things about ourselves that we might not like, so we deny it, we ignore it. You know, you want certain things, and you wait till you get older, on the other side of middle age, and then you just say F it, and then you turn into that person. But
yeah. So when you think about knowing what your next is going to be, part of knowing what your next is you actively seeking a next. And you know, there's nothing wrong with being comfortable, right? There's nothing wrong with being in a space that you're okay with. You know, I don't want anyone to feel that there's like, you know, comfort zones are bad things. It's natural for us to want to seek a comfort zone, but it's also natural to go out and explore, to, you know, challenge yourself, to put yourself in situations where curiosity is being stirred. And that's what helps you know when it's time to move. If you're never experiencing anything new or anything different, then it's going to be tough to see if what you're in is right or wrong for you.
Facts. Big facts. Big facts.
Right? Because he's like, this is all that there is.
Right. Okay.
I'll just challenge everyone. Do something new. Try something new once in a while.
I'm going to challenge you, and I'm looking at the camera for those who are just listening and not on the YouTube. And this is going to be in 4K. Whoa, we're in 4K.
Stepping it up.
Yeah, getting there. I'm going to challenge you to not allow your fears to keep you in a place that you don't deserve or want to be. For me, my personal experience of the story I laid out, you know, there was a fear, there was laziness, and then there was just a fear of the unknown. Like, okay, well, if I leave here, this place, I've been here for 10 years, I know everybody, I'm very comfortable, I can do this, I can be in here on autopilot with my eyes closed and do very well. And the idea of having to get to learn all this stuff all over again really caused me to just kind of chill and watch them put me in the guillotine and watch, you know, put me on my back, not even on my stomach, so I could watch the blade slowly come down on me. So that was a mistake I won't ever make again. I don't think I will. And so I just challenge you that if you're in a position that is uncomfortable, but then the idea of the work that you have to do to get out of that position makes you even more uncomfortable, run to that higher level of occurrence of uncomfortability, because it's temporary. And you could really be positioning yourself for much better opportunities in a much happier life. You can only hold on to one thing at one time. Like, you can only have one full-time job. So make it the full-time job that you really want, not the one that is, oh, you've been here and you have accumulated vacation time and all yada yada yada, and you have seniority and you don't want to give it up because you'll be starting scratch fresh somewhere else. Because guess what? At any day they can let you go, and instead of you doing it on your own terms and going to where you need to be, now you're scrambling trying to find another opportunity, which may land you into a equally miserable situation. Agreed?
Yeah. Don't run from problems.
Run towards them and tackle them.
Problems create solutions. So when you are thinking about life, the key is to explore. You don't know what you really want until you start tasting different flavors. And if you just continue to eat the same thing over and over again, it gets boring. It gets boring. Yeah.
All right, man. Hold on, let me.
So the question they gotta ask themselves, the final thought is: does the cost outweigh the payoff?
Is that it? Is that the takeaway?
I mean, that's what I would ask myself. Whatever you're going through, whatever you're dealing with, is it worth it?
That's a great summarization of that. Is it worth it? And if it's not worth it, you gotta go. And if it's not repairable, because to Jerry's point earlier, like you might just have a bad stretch. I mean, 10 years, there were times where it wasn't good for several months or whatever, and then it got better, and there's an ebb and flow to everything. But so yeah, make sure that it's a permanent dissatisfaction with what you're doing, and you know what it is you want to do, so that you can keep pushing and not sit in the same place for too long, because it's just not good for you. Life is short. So yeah, that's it. Jared, do you have anything else, sir, to add?
Yeah, man, I would just say to learn to trust yourself.
That's beautiful.
Learn to trust yourself, because you don't realize that the answer's inside you. You just gotta pay attention and listen to yourself sometimes. Be in those quiet places. Take the time to just sit and meditate and listen.
You're channeling Keisha Martin. Meditation, prayer, quiet times, all that. And take those long walks and just without your headphones in and just listen to what's going on in your head.
A lot of biblical texts say, "Be still."
Yeah. Yes. Very important. Be still. So, once again, thanks to Keisha Martin for what she contributed to the show. You can find her at www.keishamartin.com. That's KESHIA, like Keshia Martin.com. She does energy healing. She offers all kinds of programs that will help you to be a better person by getting in touch with who you are. So don't give her a shout and see what's up. In terms of Mr. Jerry Franklin Poe, how do they get at you, and why would they get at you?
And they can follow me everywhere on social media at jerrypoe.com. And if you need help with your business in terms of strategic planning,
nice,
getting your revenue strategies together, understanding how your sales need to improve based on your fear of rejection. So I'm about freeing people up with that rejection therapy.
Okay. All right. So at Jerry Poe.
At Jerry Poe, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, jerrypoe.com. All of it.
I love it. Me at djsilk on Instagram. Also, there's the link in my Instagram profile for my link tree, which is all my other content. I have a Medium page where I have writings on there. I have my mixcloud.com/djsilk12 where I have music mixes up there, as well as the other podcasts that I do. So check that out. Make sure you're following, subscribing, commenting, liking, sharing this. The feedback has been really wonderful. People are really enjoying this show, so that makes me feel good. What would make me feel better if that actually showed up in terms of comments and likes, and not just views on the content. So
if you see something, say something.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Talk
See
your
something,
shit.
say something.
So there's that. Hey, and if you are in the my tri-state area, which would be Delaware, PA, New Jersey, you know, Maryland, and you're interested in having your own podcast, you need help with production, you need a place to record, reach out. I might be able to help you out. Okay. So on that note, I am Brandon, aka DJ Silk, and he is
Jerry Franklin Poe.
And this is the End Podcast. Thank you so much for checking us out. And until the next time, be safe.